So imagination, is it a blessing or is it a curse? This is a really fascinating question because imagination, there's two different aspects of it. There's the cognitive aspect, which is what you are actually thinking, your thoughts. And then there is the emotional aspect of it, how you're thinking those thoughts, in what mental state you're thinking them. So imagination, we're going to unpack it and we're going to look at how imagination affects your creative process, but also how it affects your mental health as well. So real quick, let's talk about what imagination is before we jump into the creative process. So imagination is your brain's ability to pull these memories, pull these ideas out of various areas of your brain and synthesize them together in some way that is novel. And you're basically projecting this mental imagery, in your head. And you can break that down into imagination that is spontaneous, that you're not actually needing to do. And then there's purposeful imagination, which is generally called fantasy. And then you can break fantasy down into two different aspects. There are two different categories. There's active fantasy, which is this fantasy or imagination that is being applied, and you're specifically wanting something that is workable, a useful idea out of it. And then there's passive fantasy, which is when you do not care at all about any kind of constraints or limitations that are in the real world. So you're suspending reality and just allowing anything to take place, and that's passive fantasy. So let's look at the creative process and how imagination works throughout the creative process. If you take the simple model of creativity, the Jenna-Plor model, where it's just simply two steps. There's the generation of new ideas, and then there's the selection of those ideas that takes place right after. And it's a cyclical process because you're generating ideas and then you're exploring. Generate, explore. And you end up getting this kind of wave. If you were to imagine what it would look like, is generating many ideas and then exploring those ideas until you figure out, oh, okay, these are the ideas that are the most workable, the ones I want to use. And then there's a second cycle where you generate again and then you explore. And creativity can be described in a very general way as this continual cycle of exploring, of generating and exploring ideas. You can see that imagination plays a huge role in both of those areas. In generation, we're talking about this divergent thinking. And imagination, divergent thinking and imagination go very well together, because divergent thinking is all about coming up with these original ideas and coming up with a lot of them, and synthesizing them together. And the same is true for imagination, where you're synthesizing a lot of ideas together, but you're doing it in this playful way where you're allowing a lot of different ideas to come into contact with each other, and you're giving yourself a better chance of finding a creative solution. And then you move on to exploration of those ideas. And what you're really talking about here is the consequences of choosing the idea you want. So you generate these ideas and you come up with, let's say, 10 different ideas. Exploration is picking out idea number one and saying, okay, if this is true, or if I decide to go this direction, then what else is true? So you're exploring the implications of each of those ideas that you generated. And then once you find the ideas that are your favorite, then you go back into generation again. So you see imagination is playing a huge role in both the generation and exploration of ideas. So now let's look at how imagination works in your mental health. So Ruth Bernstein is the author of 13 Thinking Tools for Creative People. And they talk about creativity or imagination as the intersection between your ability to synthesize ideas together and play. So you're kind of using these two different, you're playfully combining ideas together. So that's how they define imagination. And what I like to do is you can break that down even further and or not even break it down, but you're talking about just abstracting it. What they're really saying is that there's two different areas of imagination. There's the cognitive aspect, where you're actually talking about what you are thinking, the content of your thoughts, and so the synthesis part. And then there's an emotional aspect, what they were calling play or curiosity, that is feeding into what you're thinking as well. So if you look at these two aspects of imagination, you can see that imagination can be both a blessing and a curse, simply based on which emotion is guiding your imagination. So when Ruth Bernstein is talking about imagination, they're saying it's guided by play or curiosity or some kind of positive emotions. Then you see that mental health is going to benefit from it because you're having fun, you're combining all these ideas together, and you're doing it in a way that you enjoy. So you're taking this ability to imagine and you're combining it with positive emotions. But you can see that you can keep that ability to imagine. You're still really good at imagining, but if your emotions turn negative, then it's a very different story for the creative person. Because now, these two constructs are always going to be affecting one another. What you think is going to affect how you feel, and how you feel is going to affect what you're thinking. So right when how you feel turns very negative, and you're talking about fear now, you're imagining and you're combining it with fear, then you can see where these mental health problems come, because now you're using that same ability to generate many ideas. So you're generating all the ways that everything could go wrong, and then you're exploring all of these different. This could break here, and then if I'm not good enough to solve this problem, so then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and then ultimately everything's going to be horrible in the end. So you're using that same ability to imagine, but all you're doing differently is you're combining it with a different emotion, one that is strongly negative or one that is strongly positive. So whether imagination is a blessing or a curse is not going to come down to the process of imagining. It's going to come down to the emotions that you're experiencing while you are imagining something. And once again, the things that you imagine, the content of your thoughts, are going to affect your emotions, and your emotions are going to affect the content of your thought. So it's both, it leads to this vicious circle where if it goes negative, it tends to keep going negative, but also it can be this virtuous circle where once you get into a creative flow, once you're having fun and you're allowing curiosity to guide you or play to guide you, then the momentum is in your favor and you're able to generate a lot of new ideas and have tons of fun while you're doing it. So I'm Jared Voley. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more videos. You can also ask your own questions by either going to Quora.com and finding me there, or going to my own website, jaredvoley.com, or you can go to YouTube and you can ask your question in the comment section. So once again, I'm Jared Voley. Thanks for watching.